Welcome. How's everybody today? I hope you are having a wonderful day today. I know I am. It is so gorgeous outside. It is so beautiful. And if you haven't stepped outside today, please, this great weather is going to be going away and it's going to start being cold all the time. Get out in this weather. It is truly glorious. I've actually been outside a lot today. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. If you haven't visited us before, my name is Mr. Paul, and I'm an artist and an art teacher. And I assume that you guys are here to do an art project today. So that's the main reason that we're here, is to have some fun, maybe do something that you haven't really done before, and just experiment and play and try something different, right? And so today we're going to talk about imagination. Now, I talk about imagination all the time, but today we're going to specifically narrow down that definition of what that is and what that really means to you and me and everybody else. I mean, a lot of people think that having imagination is only for like artists. Well, that's not true. And we're going to get into that in a little bit later in the program. So imagination, how does that affect your life? How does it affect your artwork? How does it affect the world to have imaginative people in the world doing what they do? So first and foremost, let's talk about materials. As usual, this is real simple. White paper, either drawing paper or copy paper, doesn't make a difference. Some pencils, sharp pencils, erasers, maybe a pencil sharpener, and then some color. Some crayons or oil pastels or colored pencils, something that you can use to brighten up and make your imaginative pictures very, very colorful. I love color, and I'm sure you guys do too. So anyway, we're going to take just a slight little break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to start up the project, and we're going to talk a little bit more about imagination and how it affects your life, my life, and everybody's life in the world. Now, when I looked up the word imagination in the dictionary, it had a bunch of definitions for it. But the one I liked was the action or process of forming images or concepts in your head and then actually take them out of your head and make them physical, whether it's artwork or it's a book or what have you. To break that down, it's meaning you have the ability to think things up in your head, visualize them, make pictures of them in your head, kind of play with them and get into what can I do, what can I say, what can I change, what can I add, and then actually take those images or those visions or these concepts and actually produce something from your imagination. That's how I define it. Imagination is the ability to create something that maybe hasn't been around before, or you've changed something that's been around for a long time, like you put your own slant to it, your own way of doing things in a new way or in a new light, seeing it with new eyes and bringing something new to maybe something old. So everybody, I believe, has a certain amount of imagination. Let's put it this way. I don't think if nobody had imagination, we'd still probably be living in caves. We wouldn't have cars. We wouldn't have televisions. We wouldn't have books. We wouldn't have artwork. we wouldn't have the internet, we wouldn't have video games, right? All this fun, creative stuff that fills our life that we really, really love. Well, it all starts with someone or some people that have a great imagination and go, this doesn't really exist now, but what if we could do this and create that and people would love it? So don't ever think that you don't have a certain amount of creativity. But I tell you what, it's like playing basketball or anything else. You have to practice. You have to give yourself to, man, I got this really neat idea. And instead of just going, okay, you got the idea, you create something with that idea. Use your imagination. We've seen it just recently within this COVID pandemic. These people who have created this new vaccine to help everybody in the world to get out of the COVID pandemic, that takes imagination. They didn't have a virus, and so they took what they had and their knowledge that they had, and they literally created a new vaccine specifically for this. That is imagination. Also takes talent. Also, it takes a lot of smarts. But it's that imagination that kickstarts it into becoming a reality. Now, when I was a kid and when I was a young man starting out as an artist, my favorite kind of art was called surrealism. My favorite artists when I was in my early 20s were two artists, one named Salvador Dali and René Magritte. Those two guys kicked it. I mean, these guys were phenomenal. Now, let me give you an idea of what surrealism means. Some of you may already know. I think we all know what realism is. It's like when you draw something and you really try to make it look real. Realism, right? And it looks great, and it looks, there are some people that can draw and paint that look like photographs, right? That's hyperrealism. But anyway, surrealism is kind of the same thing, but with a big twist. Surrealistic art, when you look at it, it looks like it's real. But there's no way on earth it could be real. And I want to show you my little cartoon thing over here. Some of you may remember something like that if you ever saw Avatar, the floating mountains in Avatar. It looked so real in that movie. But it was a bit of surrealism. It could never exist in real life, but it looked like it was in real life. So I've got these floating houses in the air, and I've got this landscape, just kind of like a regular landscape, right? And then down here I've got this window where you can enter into the universe, just for fun. I thought that would be fun. So again, surrealism is a type of artwork like realism and pop art and the Renaissance art. I mean, there's all different movements of art that have come into the world ever since there's been art, right? And so this one came out probably at the turn of the 20th century, probably 20 years before and 20, 30 years after the turn of like 1901, 1902, after the turn of that century. And there are some great artists that use that simple imagery, those simple pictures of creating something that can't exist in real life, but boy, does it look real. We have a lot of filmmakers right now and video game makers right now that create these computer generated images of stuff you know for a fact do not exist. You know, anytime you see a dragon in a show that looks very real and it's real scary, you know that it's from an artist's mind, an artist's brain, somebody that's creative and somebody that's got a great imagination. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to ask every single one of you to create a landscape, right? A landscape is anything that you see outside, right? Hillsides, mountains, ocean scenes, buildings, you know, like a skyscrapers downtown Oklahoma City, that kind of thing. I want you to draw something that, again, kind of looks real. It's pretty real, but it can't be, because you know that houses don't float on big rocks in the sky. Now, mine's a cartoon. It doesn't look real. But there are wonderful surrealistic artists out there that I grew up with that I loved. In fact, that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to do that kind of imagery. In fact, I've got paintings in my, I've got this area, this loft area in my studio that date back to, like, you know, the 80s maybe, 1970s, yeah, I know, I'm old, that are surrealistic paintings. You know, things floating in the sky and people flying and creatures that you know don't exist, but they sure look real. So that's what we're going to do today. I want you to draw a landscape like no other landscape, right? It's pure imagination, pure fantasy, and I want you to pull out the stops and use that imagination that I know you guys all have, and come up with something really, really fun. It could be silly too. And you know, another thing, you know, a favorite game of little kids is Candyland. Well, that's all surrealistic, all surrealism, because we know that the world isn't made out of candy, even if it looks like it. So I'm going to stop for a minute, and I'm going to get some more supplies, and when we come back, we are going to start up. I'm going to show you kind of how I did mine, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how people that have imaginations can change the world.